Welcome back to another video, and these are my fall eyeshadow palette favorites for 2025. Welcome back, and I know I should have maybe put this out maybe a bit earlier because I think most creators have put out their fall eyeshadow palette recommendation videos by now. However, I will say fall has been very late. I think it's a bit ridiculous that we're now on October and there's still we have majority still leaves on the trees and a lot of them are still green. Usually by the time we get October, and where I live, usually October is already the time when most of the leaves have fallen off, but that is purely because I think September was exceptionally warm, so it took some time. So for me, we are still very much in the middle of fall season and we're still not in the sort of end of the fall where we're transitioning into winter, so this is very appropriate. So how I always do these videos, we're gonna be putting these into categories. There's gonna be the ones from Drugstore, then we're gonna do the high-end ones, and lastly there's gonna be indie ones. Spoiler alert, most of these palettes are indie palettes because that's the biggest eyeshadow category I have in my collection. And I think you can generally go with these palettes to a direction that they are either these very sort of warm, bright fall colors, or then we have the sort of end of the fall sort of grungy colors. So that is kind of how I go with my sort of fall eyeshadow palette recommendations. And because I have now been running my YouTube channel for some time now, I think the new thing we're gonna do that if I do have swatches of the palette, you're gonna see a small image somewhere here, so you can kind of see what the palette looks like, also swatched out. But from some of the older palettes, it could be that you are not gonna see the image because it could be that the palette has been gotten before I started making sort of YouTube mega videos into YouTube. So with some older palettes then there's a still isn't image, but I think when I'm looking at this one that with most of the palettes I should have a swatch image existing. But anyway, there were quite a few recommendations here and I think there's pretty good variety, so let's start talking about my sort of fall recommendations. Okay, first we're gonna go to Drugstore, and in this one we also do have one K-Beauty palette because the pricing. K-Beauty palettes usually in our retailers, we have a couple of K-Beauty retailers that I can actually get the stuff in store. Usually they are a bit on the more mid-range side in terms of pricing, but I like to categorize them with the Drugstore ones. And we have one palette, so this is actually something I tried during the spring, and this ranked relatively high in my mid-year ranking. So this is by the Seek, and I think this was called the... What was this one called? 01 Sugar Brownie. So this is a very small 9-pan palette, and this goes to the category of fall eyeshadow palettes that if you're looking for just these warm, comforting, orangey leaning neutrals, I think this is a very good palette for that. And I think there's gonna be later on some of these bigger palettes that have a similar color story to this one, so I think if you're looking for a very condensed down version of this sort of warm pumpkin spice kind of a fall color story, this is a good option. These are very high quality shadows. The mattes are pigmented, but they build and they are easy to blend. The shimmers are kind of very smooth shimmers. These aren't these sort of chunky, glitter adhesive shimmers that some of the K-Beauty palettes put into, but these are smooth traditional shimmers that are just very sort of give this sort of wet look on your eyelids. And yeah, this is something that I would buy if you're looking for this kind of color story in a smaller variation. And if you get this on YesStyle or some other online K-Beauty retailer, you might get this on a deal, because I think I did pay somewhere around 28 or 29 euros of this one, but if you get this on a online retailer, you could get it for cheaper. Then a Beauty Bay palette. Actually we have two. This is a palette that you haven't yet seen reviewed on my channel. The review is going to be coming I think in a few weeks time. So this is the Desert Haze palette, and this was actually officially their summer release, but I think for me this actually screams more fall. And the reason again is that this actually has some of these sort of muted green tones in it, but we get a pops of yellows and we get again these sort of orangey leaning neutrals. So for me this is an more fall rather than a summer color story. I think this is, as a sort of sneak peek for the review, this is one of the better quality palettes that I have tried from Beauty Bay in a while. Not all of their especially limited edition palettes have been that good, but with this one there is something very special about the shimmers they put into this one, but also how well the mattes work out. And I think if you're looking for this kind of color story at a drugstore prices, Beauty Bay, they are an online exclusive retailer, but their own brand palettes, these are very good price compared to how many shades you're getting, and I think the quality of this one is quite pretty beautiful, especially for the price. Then an OG one, this is a very humongous one, and I think this might be one of those palettes that I don't have a swatches because this is something I've gotten before I started filming on YouTube. So this is the 42 pan Earthy palette, and this is specifically a palette that I recommend for fall. And this is one of the palettes that I would buy over the 16 pan variation, because Beauty Bay in their staple line palettes they do a smaller variation of this one, and I would recommend this over the 60 pan one because the 60 pan one doesn't have this one. So this section here makes this a fall palette for me. So this has this sort of like reddish, orangey, more mustardy tones that are very appropriate, especially when we get into the sort of middle of the fall when the leaves are in this sort of bright colors. And then you have the sort of greens here to mix in with these ones. This is of course a very big palette, so you do have to consider that does it serve a purpose in your collection to have this kind of big color story. But for me, why I do recommend this over the 16 pan variation, what makes this a fall palette for me is this section over here. And again, this is a very good quality. This is older than the Desert Haze palette, so the Desert Haze might have been, especially with the shimmers, I think the formulations in this one versus maybe some of the new limited edition palettes, I think that these ones, the shimmers, they are there's like a different kinds of shimmer formulas in this one. Some of them are more satin-like and some of them are more shimmery, but still I do think the quality of this one, again considering the pricing, very good. Then let's get to the sort of high-end favorites, and in here we have 3. So first one is a palette that I currently have in my rotation, though it's not a palette that I'm currently wearing. So this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Fall Romance palette, and this I think goes to the category that if you're looking for almost this like grungy, more like almost what I would say Halloween-esque color stories, this could actually be a good one. And you can still get this one, at least I saw this on our sort of ABH stands. The formula of this one, not maybe as good, for example, that was in their Spice holiday palette last year, but I still think that it is a very like decent formula. The shimmers also are something that were better in the sort of Spice palette, which was the 9 pan palette that I got from their holiday collection last year, but the shimmers in this one, even though they're not as sparkly, they are still pretty good. Only thing I would say about this one is that this goes quite deep. There isn't a lot of, I think there's only like one more, like this brown over here. It's a, what I would say, more of a blending out shade, but otherwise this goes very deep. So if you are not into deep fall color stories, then maybe not get this one. But if you're looking for at a sort of like more accessible grungier color story, then this could be actually a pretty good option. Then the palette that I always say that this is either a fall or summer palette for me. So this is the By Radar Remembrance palette. I'm very sorry, this has the hideously reflective front. And this goes to the sort of pumpkin spice category. There is something bit like extra in this one for the fact that it has the sort of cool tone silvers. I didn't get the Bibliophilia palette because I'm still waiting for that one to come into store. I don't want to order By Radar from online because these are very fragile, so this is not a palette that I would not, like I wouldn't travel with this one, and that's the reason why I don't want to order this from like online, like from online store, because I would be pretty afraid that something would happen with it in transit. So just if you are eyeing any of these By Radar's bigger palettes, the formula is very nice, however unfortunately it is also a very fragile formula. So this goes to the category, like I think always like I'll say that I kind of treat these as like sides. So this side over here is more what I would say goes to the category of fall colors, and then this lighter side is usually what I would say goes to the like spring category. But I of course mix these colors together, and it is a this goes to like that if you kind of want the pumpkin spice kind of a vibe, but you want it in a very sort of effortless smooth formula, and you don't want this sort of super chunky high shine shimmers, but you're looking for something more toned down, this is a good option for that. But unfortunately this was a limited edition palette, but if you did manage to buy this when it was launched a couple of years ago, I would maybe dig it out. Then the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette, so this was actually her fall launch, I think this was last year, yeah. This is when I said, for example, that if you're eyeing the Dasique palette and you want a condensed down version of this, then get the Dasique one. But if you want a sort of very extensive like color story of this sort of like warm tone linen browns, and even with some like warmer, almost like peachy orangey tone shades, then I would get this one. There is something fun in this one. We do have this sort of like orangey greenish shifting multichrome, which again kind of fits the idea of a fall launch. This isn't though, if you're thinking that is it super warm toned, actually when you kind of like cover, if you cover this half away, then it's quite actually more neutral leading. This is this is actually the kind of like good quality Natasha Denona palette. There's been now some variation again with the formulas that she's been doing because she seems to change them all the time, but this has kind of a very like nice sparkly shimmer shades, and then we have the mattes that do work out quite well. So this is one of the like good ones. I don't for some reason just gravitate towards this one. Like I have to be honest, for some reason this isn't the most appealing of Natasha Denona's palette. Like color stories for me, but I do have to say it is good, like a good quality palette from her, and I do say that for fall season this is quite appropriate. Then we have the big pile in front of me, which are all the sort of indie releases. So this was a new one, and I did actually recently review this on my channel. So this is the Ink and Roses palette from Artitude Cosmetics, and only thing I have to warn you, the shimmers do crease, so if you don't like these sort of emollient shimmers that crease a lot, then maybe skip this one, but if you're able to work with them, I was pretty surprised how high quality, especially the mattes in this one were. So even though this was a Valentine's palette, for me this is actually the sort of end of the fall palette, because it has this sort of grey leaning, like almost grey muted like colorful tones in it. We do get like there are some pinks in this one, which kind of is the indication that it's been a more, what I would say, a Valentine's release. But for me actually, as an overall color story, this is screams. This goes to the like season of like fall season, when we have the leaves already have come down from the trees, and we're kind of like expecting like transition to winter. So this goes to like for me this like screams end of the fall. Then a classic, so this is the Blend Bunny Dollhouse palette. I think this is still one of my favorite Blend Bunny palettes. So this is kind of that if you want crunchy fall colors but you also want your staple neutrals, then I think this is an excellent option. I'm a bit unsure, can you still get this one? I think if you have been eyeing something similar, the Ellis Atlantis second collaboration is actually, there's like bit similarities, but it's not identical. The Ellis, obviously, you don't get the shimmers in the one palette, but you have to buy the shimmer palette separately, though I do think the Ellis shimmers, they are of course much more advanced than what was in here, because this was one of the original palettes. But if you have this in your sort of drawers, then I think fall time is a very good season to get this, because you do have a range in this one. There are some grungier tones, but you do have some neutral tones. We have Pop of Orange. I think there is also, there's some grungy greens in this one. So for me, this is a very sort of, what I would say, an very versatile fall palette in the fact that you have options with this one. Then I think something that screams, especially this sort of like middle fall, beginning of fall season. So this is the Adept Cosmetics, so Sumerian Sunset palette. I don't have that many Adept palettes in my collection, so that is why I always have to think about the name. So if this doesn't scream the sort of beautiful fall, reddish, greenish, orangey, yellow leaves to you, then I don't know what does. This is like truly remarkable in terms of the shimmers. The shimmers are a bit on the emollient side, so again, if you don't like the shimmers that can crease during the daytime, maybe don't get this one. The only downside of this one is that the mattes in this one were absolutely trash. Like, I could barely get some of the shades, matte shades in this one to like work on my eyelid, and I'm someone with fair skin tone, so most mattes should at least show up. What this one, that was pretty like, it was pretty terrible, but I actually have done so that I do usually actually use the Beauty Bay Earthy palette with this one, so I get the mattes from the Earthy palette, and then I actually use the shimmers in this one. So ignore the matte shades, but the shimmers, beautiful. Unfortunately, this was a limited edition release, and I can get it because it was an IP collab, so they probably had a bit of a limitation how long they can produce this. But if you have this in your collection and you're looking for the ultimate fall palette, I do think this is one of those that is just something very, very special. We actually do have now two Cosmic brushes, Cosmic Beauty, because they have renamed themselves. But previously we only had one usually in this section, but now we have two. So first one is the classic, so this is the Muse palette. Are they discontinuing? I think they might have said that they might be discontinuing this one. This was their most neutral palette. I say previously because we're gonna be soon showing them what is their like currently one of the more neutral ones. This is still beautiful. It is not as maybe high shine shimmers as some of their newer palettes, but I do think in terms of mattes, this is still the very good Cosmic Beauty quality. This is maybe a bit more like it goes to the grungy fall palettes, but we do have some pop-up colors in this one. We do have some bright purples in this one, and you do get the pinks in this one. But this I think is one of those like beautiful fall palettes that if you want some like fall tones but you want also some pops of colors, then this is very good, and still very beautiful color story. But I'm a bit unsure the status of this one because I might have seen at least somewhere that they might be discontinuing this, which would be like understandable because this is obviously a very old launch. Then something that is still probably, oh, this makes me so happy. So this is the Neutrals palette. So this was one of the two palettes they launched at the end of last year. They have now launched they have a now more smoky neutral palette also in their collection, but I opted so far not to get it because it seemed a bit grey heavy. But this one in terms of fall color story, I think it's pretty obvious. It's a very warm yellow. We kind of have these yellowy and olivey tones with browns that go very much together with this sort of fall season, and this is very exceptional quality, what I think, considering that this isn't also the most expensive of indie brands that you can get. This has like a couple of like more like duochrome, multichrome shades, but what I do like with Cosmic Beauty's palettes is that they don't just like, they put nice shimmers in their palettes, but they do put like a couple of special shades, so it doesn't that keeps their palette prices pretty reasonable. I think if you're into this kind of color story for your sort of fall eyeshadow looks, like I would 100% recommend this. This has been one of the best palettes that I've tried so far during this year. Then something from a Polish indie brand, so this is from Glanshop, and this was their previous year's fall launch. And first of all, packaging of this one, I did discuss when I reviewed this collection that I think this collection overall was one of the best collections they had produced so far. I'm kind of bummed that we haven't seen now a large new collection from them. We didn't get a summer collection from them, we just got some individual releases, and also now I haven't yet seen, at least in their socials, that they've been working on a fall release, which is such a shame because I do think that quality is pretty awesome. This is the, I think this is called the Ze Violetem, was the palette, this was the name of this one, and I think this is something that you can still get on their website. I do like with their shimmers especially is that they have worked with their shimmer formulas a little bit. This is a very smooth shimmer formula. They used to do these very chunky shimmers which were very impactful, but also they were hard to work with. But you get some special shimmers in this one, but they are a smoother formula. The mattes are also, this one work very well, and this goes to again to the more like muted fall color stories. And this kind of has a row of purples, but I would say that you necessarily, like, you can get also other looks than purples look with this one. I think it might be a bit deceiving because the packaging is purple and you do have the row of purples in this one, so it might make this look more purple than it is. And if you do like your fall palette with a twist of purple, then this I think would be ideal. But I think for fall launch, this was very beautiful launch from them last year, and I would still recommend it if you've been eyeing this particular palette. Then something that I would recommend from your drawers if you are a Halloween fan. I'm obviously not, but I did want to include this one because I do think the shimmers in this one are quite nice. So this is from Ensley Rain, and this is their Harvest Moon palette. I'm a bit unsure that is this something you can still get. So my only gripe about this one is that the mattes don't offer that a lot of range. So you have the one row over here with the mattes, and they are quite the same in terms of the tones of them, so you don't get a lot of depth variety. But I do think what makes this very special are the shimmers. They are again maybe, this was one of the palettes that didn't increase that much on me. With Ensley Rain there's been bit now variety. Some of their shimmers do increase and some don't, but this one I think most of the shimmers they worked out very beautifully, and this I do think is the ultimate like Halloween. We have some like punchier like pop of like especially orange, which is a very Halloween color, but then we have some grungier deeper shimmers also in this one, and I think all of the shimmers in this particular palette also are some kind of special shimmers, which does mean that this is also quite expensive. But if you are looking for maybe an ultimate Halloween indie palette, this is something that I would like at least look into. Then the Glaminatrix Nearly Natural palette. So this is something that I also tried during this year, and this goes to the... I think this goes to the maybe to the fall palettes again, that if you're looking for maybe something that has neutrals but also has a bit of neutrals with a twist, so you can kind of get this sort of very traditional, like more what I would say like brownish leaning looks, but then you can get some like there are especially the mustardy shades in this one are kind of what makes this fun. I will have to say that especially with the Glaminatrix formula with this particular palette, that if you have been afraid of trying out indie shimmers because you're afraid that they crease on you or they move around, this is a very excellent formula for the fact that it's a very high shimmer formula, but it stays put on your lid the whole day. This one had a very exceptional longevity, especially with their shimmer shades. And I do think their matte formula, they have improved at least from what I have tried from them previously. So I think if you're looking for a fall theme palette from Glaminatrix, but you don't want to go, because they did come out with the Bonfire palette, which was this sort of orangey greenish palette, which is more of a colorful, what I would say a colorful fall palette, but if you're looking for something a bit more muted from Glaminatrix for the fall season, then this is something that I would try out. Then we have two more from Odensai. So this was actually from their sort of summer release where they actually did release 4 seasonal palettes, but I actually think that, yeah, this is the Awesome Alba palette, and I actually did go a bit that is this a fall palette, is it a spring palette? I did end up saying on my review video that it's kind of spring palette, but I can kind of see that also this could be a fall palette. So I think if you like more, especially brighter greens for your fall looks, then this could be actually a good one, but this could also be something that you would maybe use more in springtime because the greens are more brighter. We do have some muted shades. There are like the over here we have the sort of mauvish purples, and here we also have some grays, and we do kind of get these two shades over here that go to the more like grungy green ones. But this is kind of like a 50-60 palette where I can see that yeah, you can get fall looks in this one, but also this is something that you might gravitate towards spring because there are some brighter tones and you do have the very bright pop of yellow. So I was kind of like thinking that do I include this into this video or will I save it to the spring recommendation, but this might be a palette that will be future both in, because I think this is a palette that can go to both seasons depending how you like to do your eyeshadow looks. Then the last one, and this is something that I always say that this goes to the again to the end of the fall transition into winter season. So this is the Jewels and Gem palette from Odensai. I do think still that if you're looking for something more neutral leaning from Odensai, this is still your best option, even though this isn't a technically a full-on neutral palette. So why this goes to the sort of end of the fall season, for me, I think quite obvious reasons. So this is very cool toned. You kind of like have some muted greens in this one, there are some mauves and there are some muted blues, but it is just like something that at least for me goes to the aesthetic when we have sort of like again the season when you don't have the leaves anymore on the trees, and it usually is pretty gray during daytime because you don't have like daytime, the amount of light during daytime is already like maybe like a couple of hours during day, so that is the reason why this always makes me think of more. I would like to say that this is my October palette, but now looking outside of the window it's not looking very October-y currently, so I will have to move this to the sort of like now maybe at the end of October, beginning of November now would be maybe a good description how I would like categorize this one. But I think you can still get this on Odensai website, so if you've been eyeing a more sort of like a cool toned down sort of a fall color story from them, or you're just looking for something more maybe neutral leaning that isn't still full on neutral, I do still think this is a very good option. Those were my fall recommendations. Comment down below maybe your top 3 eyeshadow palettes for this fall season, or if there's maybe a new fall release that you have tried, then comment down below that one, so maybe we can look into that one and see do we want to add something like that into our collections. If you like this video, push the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell button if you want to get notifications from future content. You can also find me with the same nickname, Makeup Hedgehog on Instagram. I'll be soon on the video. Bye bye!